shortly. We're delighted to have in our midst the chairman of the Governors Forum. We await one other governor, as you can see from the arrangement on the podium. He's just a few minutes away. Once he gets here, we'll start the Governors Forum. This is another thing I want to commend His Excellency, the Honorable Minister of State of Human Resources for, and that is, we've had previous 4 editions of this Governors Forum. We have had a challenge in bringing governors into the room, not because the governors didn't want to attend, but because of the exigencies of duty. We have had one governor here, that's the digital governor, right? James, I think I'm correct. We had the digital governor here, Professor Yedi, at one time. And then we had deputy governors, a number of them. But His Excellency has made the efforts to bring in the chairman of the Governors Forum and another governor. The chairman of the Governors Forum is the voice of all the governors. So whatever he's going to be saying to us today, we're rest assured that the next time they meet, if they have not discussed it, they will discuss it. If they have discussed it, they will advance it. So I want to thank you, Your Excellency, the Honorable Minister. Please give him another round of applause. We appreciate you, sir, for bringing to us the chairman of the Governors Forum for the first time that a sitting Governors Forum chairman will be attending our event, and we appreciate that.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to do this protocol, but it's not going to work. All right, I'll try and keep this as simple as possible. Your Excellencies, this panel has been specially selected. You have exploration activities, one way or the other, in the states. You have resource. Truth be said, we need to appreciate and recognize the presence of these, the governors that are here and representatives. In the last 4 years, each time this panel is constituted, it never holds because the governors don't turn up. I think they deserve a round of applause for the first time they are here. Especially Chairman of the Governors Forum, who has been the point of duty to be here today. We really appreciate your time here, and the other governors, and the representatives from overall umbrella progressives. Then the progressive. We are here. We can't pretend we're not here. All right, that's on the lighting note. We really appreciate the presence of His Excellencies that have made time to be with us. Like I said, every year, and we'll just end up finding something to do. It has become imperative that these conversations will be held because you are the custodians of some of these things. I don't know what the law, extent of the law that allows you to superintend over what happens in the state. Perhaps that's the conversation we'll be having. You also get revenues from what has been accrued from wherever and brought to the central boss, and also trickles down back to the states. Year in, year on, and we see that these figures are not friendly anymore, and the resources, the dynamics of getting these resources from where it is changing. There's a climate change issue, and so we're going to be having conversations around how you intend to navigate through these murky waters, whilst we are trying to use what we have to get to where we are going to. I will yield the floor right now for the Chairman of the Governors Forum to have a bit of an opening remark on this conversation, and we can progress.
Your Excellency, the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, my brother, the Chair of the Progressive Governors Forum, Governor Abakati Kubagudu, representatives of my brother governors from Bayelsa, from Rivers, who are also here. First, let me express gratitude for this opportunity to be part of this historic occasion. Just as you said, not the first one, but this is the first time that you're getting us here as governors. And it's not without holding brief for the previous times when governors were not able to make it. When you are caught in between many things, and the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, he knows this better than many people here. He's been in these shoes and he knows how we juggle. The governor Kevin has just returned from Lagos. I just flew in straight from Ekiti now in order to be part of this. But we're really delighted to be here and we commend you for the work that you're doing. The theme of this conference, this summit, is revitalizing the industry. And this is the time to talk about revitalization. The Petroleum Industry Act has just been passed into law. Even if governors have some issues, as the minister already knows we do have, with the law itself, and that is being worked on by the implementation committee. But we think it's a significant step. 20 odd years after that attempt started to review the 1969 Petroleum Act that has been the driver of the industry over the last 50 odd years. And clearly the gaps that have been noticed in growing the industry and growing the sector, particularly in ensuring that we run a sustainable institution that will not only respond to the yearnings of the industry, but also the general concerns of the Nigerian public. Some of the things that have been addressed partly in the law. For us as states that are beneficiaries of the goods that plays the golden egg, the oil and gas industry, we also are very desirous that this industry is sustained over the long term. We see areas of concerns, particularly in terms of revitalizing the industry, around transparency, around accountability, around governance of the sector. The minister, you know as much as I do, we've just had Federation Allocation Accounts Committee meeting a couple of days ago, and the NNPC contributed zero to the Federation account this month. And this is not the first month that the NNPC is contributing zero. Over the last couple of months, we've been having these challenges. Of course, we know why. Even though oil prices in the international market is going up, maybe $110 today or more, the more it goes up, it will appear that the more we suffer locally. So there's an invidious relationship of sorts between what is happening in the international market and what we're experiencing here in Nigeria. And as critical stakeholders in the Nigerian Federation, states are naturally concerned about this. They're concerned about how to grow this industry and ensure that this industry is sustained over the long term in a manner that it can benefit those who are stakeholders in the industry. That is partly why for us, governance of the sector is a very, very critical thing to do. The PIA is responding to some of the issues that we have about that, but it's like a typical transition. In every transition, the old is dying, but the new is not yet born. You're caught in the middle, and there's a significant amount of confusion that happens in that transition period. I guess that's what we're experiencing now, but the faster we can complete that process of transition, I think the better it is for us. Also, because of the nature of the industry and the exclusivity of the industry. In the constitution of Nigeria, states have always had their own issues. Whilst in principle, we understand why the industry is in the exclusive of the Nigerian constitution, in the exclusive list, we also feel we need to begin to look at this rather differently, in a manner that strengthens the commitment to private sector development, but also strengthens the ownership across states, local authorities, if they have the wherewithal to do this, and also the federal government. And one of the things that states are interested in is how institutions, companies that they've created themselves or established as private sector entities, either in joint venture partnership with other private sector entities or exclusively as a special purpose vehicle to warehouse state interest, should be able to participate actively in the oil and gas industry, as we do. As I recall, when I was in the Ministry of Mines, we made it possible for states to set up special purpose vehicles that can then apply for license in order to actively participate in the mining industry, be it gold or bitumen. We gave Ondo State company a bitumen license when I was in the ministry. We gave Kaduna, Tantalite, and Nasarawa, and a number of states who set up private sector vehicles. So that's in terms of revitalizing the industry and ensuring sustainability over the long term. That's an area that I think we need to look at. When you look at the statistics, Honorable Minister, transparency is central to the challenge this sector faces. On my way here, I was looking at the Natural Resources Governance Institute reports, and Nigeria is not doing very well. We ran 40 out of 58 natural resource countries on the Transparency Index because we still believe to run a lightly opaque oil industry, and we see it ourselves. NNPC declares profit, yet it cannot meet its obligations. My simple knowledge of economics teaches me that it is only after you've met all your obligations that you then talk about making profits. So if your obligation to the federation account has not been met, how can you then talk about profit making? But then, you know, it's the kindergarten economics that I've displayed. My colleague is a proper economist. So Governor KB will be able to analyze that a lot more intelligently than I have done. But I see positive that we need to build on. I mean, local content is growing in the industry. My brother Simbi is around, and I commend the work he's been doing in that respect. I saw a report, I think it was yesterday, Seplat buying up mobile producing assets in the country. I think this is something that should be commended because Seplat is a local industry, even though operating in the global market. I believe that there must be some positives to that, and we must build on such initiatives as long as it is transparently done. But for us as states, ultimately, what we're looking at is a situation where at some point, even the industry itself could operate the way your LNG operates currently. So that at the end of the day, there's greater transparency, there's greater accountability, and the governance framework is really built on efficiency of the industry. But let me stop.
In terms of transparency, we know that the governments have responsibility in all of this. I mean, life would happen beyond fossil. And this transition and re-energizing of the industry we're talking about is not just about fossil, When we're going to use it for now, agreed to it when we're going to. But life after hustle, or life in the situation where hustle is going to be a mix. What will the governors be doing? If you can't run up and get all the monies you want to get internally, what are you doing? How are you responding, for instance, to the climate change question? All of the trainings, explorations that are going on, how are you going to remediate, and what would you have a think tank looking towards this? And I'm going to take this, I'm taking this to His Excellency the Governor of Kebbi State. What is the state doing? What are you looking at as far as this whole conversation is concerned? Especially life beyond fossil.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, and representatives of all the state governments here, our brother, the Honorable Minister of State, Permanent Secretary, and all the distinguished stakeholders, including my other brother, Lady Faru Ahmed, who have been stretched to the limit by the challenges of the moment, but I feel they have been doing well, and indeed all the industry stakeholders here. Let me join from Fayemi in commending the Honorable Minister of State and those behind this initiative, and thank for inviting us. I share in most of what John Fayemi says, and indeed in the last 7 years, the National Economic Council, the Nigerian Governors Forum, and other forums of governors have been dominated, part of the discourse have been dominated by what can we do, what is our environment. We even have a zero oil committee to say, what can we do if we don't have oil process? And so, and states have been challenging themselves to do more and differently, and they are cognizant of the energy transition that is taking place. That's why we are all enthusiastic in support of the industry as documented in the Petroleum Industry Act. Because, especially for somebody from Kebbi State, a state that is not currently producing fossil oil, we reason that the fossil oil industry developed by historic investment, which systematically provided support, subsidy, encouragement to industry players in order to get us to where we are. But now we are in a transition, and maybe for me in Kebbi, I don't have the flexibility to offer those systemic support that will support and invest in the transition. Maybe an investor who's going to alternative energy sources like biofuel or even renewables. I still need to come back to the federation somehow. Even with Nigerian content board, I still need, it's still driven by the federal mindset.
Is that a challenge?
Sorry?
Is that a challenge?
Oh yes, it's a challenge in the sense that here is an investor maybe who's willing to go into partnership with me in Kebbi to do ethanol. But the structure of the industry is such that I will be dependent on the distribution, on the system of support that is in place by either by the federal government or by the legislation. And I'm not able to operate independent of those two. So it can stunt my ability to attract investment. It can stunt my the speed with which I can develop that sector. For example, in the last 4 years, in a partnership with NNPC, we have been doing, we have a program of cassava and sugarcane based ethanol. itself evidence the challenge. Because if we are to achieve, for example, 15% mix, that means we will be producing 10 million liters of ethanol. And I believe there are states that are able to produce that. And in doing that, it's both equitable and it will foster a sense of each is contributing, but the sense of there are only few states that are contributing, which is even injurious to our community thought process. And meanwhile, I felt that if I have received the investment that by Elsa, with due respect to the Honorable Minister, if I am to receive $2 billion, not even the $20 billion that he has received as investment over the maybe last 20 years, with the $2 billion I am able to contribute maybe 5 million liters of ethanol.
Okay, I hear you very clearly, and I think everybody does here understand where you're coming from. So I see there's, as it were, huge untapped potentials. So we are in agreement, as it were, that you want to do this. You want to begin to live life outside of fossil, or at the very least, look inward and see what you can do to contribute to the mix. But however, there's a control issue. The gates are there. They need to be pushed over, and the barriers need to be turned down. I'm contemplating between the representative of those states and River State, because you are the champions of let's control this thing. Let's give us some powers to initiate this here. Okay, let's finish what we give you. But let me come to you. So, in terms of indigenous approach to what you want to go to, at least help yourselves. I give an example every time. Egg Power, for instance, in terms of electricity, produces over 900 megawatts. Installed capacity of 1,250 if the 6 plants are running. But because of the nature of exclusivity, it has to go first to the towers, the transmission towers, and travels sometimes across the country. Where it comes back to substations and distributions where it can go around. Can we tear down and begin to have real serious embedded power options? Have model states that you can say, when you look at the states, with their mix, they can have 24 hours power. There's no reason why it's still like Lagos State, for instance, shouldn't have this for 24 hours power. So, independently, looking at these huge potentials, that's against fossil. Let's take a back seat for now. Do you have, what kind of challenges and what kind of policies or what kind of outlook are you looking at when you push the chairs on the board?
Thank you very much. I want to thank also the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources for the iconic milestone of passing the PIA. The same goes to all of the stakeholders. As for what could be done differently, positioning to win. First of all, this summit, the name was changed, the nomenclature changed to Energy for Petroleum. I did expect to have some input from the power sector, rather the relationship for the past 4 days has been rather tangential. It's when we have the consumers, when we talk about the decade of gas, we're going to be driving gas in the country in this decade. We can't be discussing that without discussing with those who form our critical customers. And those are the gas consumers who are using gas to produce electricity. That said, beyond fossil oil and gas, our production is below 2 million barrels a day. We were clearly more than that before. It's continuing to comment for various reasons. In the past 10 years or thereabouts, we've not had any deeper discovery or development. The last one was Egina. So it means we are not getting enough money because petrodollars are not coming to Nigeria because of the delay in the past of PIA. So we're here now. The PIA, of course, it's approached a new frontier for opportunities. However, we can't be trapped in the present. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates says in the next 10 years it's going to have a fourth of the share of green hydrogen market. Japan is bringing forth $3.4 billion to the market in the next 10 years. Europe is saying we want to get to net zero in the next 10 years as well. And they are bringing millions to Africa, some other places where you have the sun and you can do electrolysis and split your hydrogen from water. And of course, hydrogen in any engine will also produce water and byproduct. So from clean energy, the world itself is moving to zero carbon. So to win for the use of what are we doing? In Ondo State, we already have mini grids. We're talking to organizations like GIC, powered by Germany, and they're everywhere in Nigeria right now, to ensure we have the mini grids to supply power for electrolysis. And because of the nearness to sea, what Europe is thinking about is in the next 5-10 years, they should be able to produce green hydrogen in Africa and ship to Europe, especially because of their wind. So we might be winning more on that front than to be trapped in this oil and gas situation. And coming to the oil and gas itself, are we building a kind of participation required? You can't talk about gas, decade of gas, without talking to all of the people who are part of the process. Our network regulation is very important. If you're going to reach all of the market that exists, you have to build new pipelines to reach those places. Right now, we have the legacy lines, and they are not even improving. The epilepsy of the supply is another issue, and we're building hubs in various places to support companies and organizations, especially for electricity. We have organizations trucking gas from Delta State to Ikiti State to some other places. In the near and long term, are we going to continue to drop gas in Nigeria? By the time you begin to have hundreds of gas trucks on our roads, that will bring another issue.
Yes, sir. Yes, something that's also an issue. It would be nice to know if no state has any pilots for anything, for AIDS people, whether exploiting fossil or something else. That if you have issue, for instance, if you're looking at, like you talked about, embedded power, if, for instance, what you get every day is 900 megawatts of power supplied to Ondo State, and maybe it can serve 70% of the people. However, you can slice that into two by way of providing an embedded power plant. We may like to hear if you have any pilots of what you're doing as a state. And perhaps what you've done with bitumen is as regards to climate change. You have a lot of bitumen, for instance.
Let me quickly answer the issue of power. Ondo has about 40 mini grids ongoing. About 10 of those are up. And we are also building at least between 3 to 4.5 megawatt stations that are going to be powered by gas in various locations in urban centers. And you saw the vote in the National Assembly some days ago when the question was asked if states could provide power in the areas covered by the national grid. That is a new day, because if you check the power movement in Nigeria, you did mention, power comes from Oshogo, for instance. You need a substation to distribute to Ondo and Ekiti State. We currently have about 55 megawatts of power coming from Oshogo, shared 20 and 35 megawatts between two states. So we have a line, 330 power that will come to Ondo State, and we share with Ekiti, will run to over 200. And in the southern part of the state where we've had power challenge for some while, we also have NEDC building a substation so that the power hub, the Omotosho power hub, where you have many megawatts of power line funnel, will bring power from that and support that corridor. So Ondo is doing things in the area of mini grids, micro grids, IPPs, and of course we are doing our best to enhance the delivery of the
What's the power? What's the mix in terms of how you intend to power the streets?
Power the streets?
The grids.
The grids. Solar. All the mini grids are powered by solar. And we have had them first in the areas, suburbs, rural areas, where we can do 80 kilowatts, 120 kilowatts, and they're going to be fine. With time, we're going to be focusing on areas where you can have the same quantum of power to power, say, market and some other locations.
Alright, thank you very much. Let's come to Bayelsa State. Perhaps one of the states that get huge revenue because of what you produce. Right? Right.
Recently, just last week, we had a questionnaire from some investors, that are trying to convert, this gas flaring into power, that we should provide, these things. But unfortunately, the PIA, if you look at it, there is no mention of state government, in that PIA, but we are being proactive, whether it is there or not, because we know that the regulations will come. And even when we made our proposals, on memorandum, it wasn't taken. But for the question you asked, I know that very soon, even within this month, we are receiving investors that will come to look into that gas flaring aspect. And somebody also mentioned, the Bahrain CPF, the central processing facility, that is N.I.E.S. Because when we talk about, the energy transition, we should also look at the facilities, that are there. If you go around that CPF, it's not something that somebody has to come and see. And since this is a business that is being controlled by the federal government and operated by the private organizations, we want to see a situation where within the environment of that CPF, but if you go inside, it's a lovely thing to look at. So within the environment, we don't want to see a situation where there could be some one or two structures, to encourage tourism aspect. But we don't need to even look at just energy transition. And the other thing again we look at, because of the terrain that's occupied, okay, there are security issues, in the terrain, and thank you. And it is something that is sensitive. One, we're talking about costs. We also have, the brass island here. And if there is a road that is connecting to that brass island, it will reduce the security issues. And people cutting down, the costs, to cut down costs, and in the long run, increase revenue, of the federation. So to summarize, I want to say that gas flaring in the states, after some period, is something that we can convert to power. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, I know there's a process. Thank you very much. Let's come to the representative of the River State Governor, Mr. Peter. Yeah, let's have your thoughts. At least from what has been said, it seems like there is a peculiar condition or peculiar need of this, of the other state governors, and it's that contrast between what you want to achieve, unlock the potentials, and the inhibitions that you may be facing, maybe by way of legislation, and that has not allowed perhaps investments to come in. You want to move, you can move when you want to move.
Well, thank you. Let me thank the Honorable Minister for Petroleum and all the organizers of this program. Let me also extend my appreciation to the brothers of my governors who are here present. Well, the situation where we are in. Let me start with the issue that the Honorable Minister said that I don't need umbrella here. And to tell the Honorable Minister that we need some shade, we need some coverage in this transition. And that kind of coverage and shade we need in this transition. You know what that can provide that. Thank you. You know that what we are talking about in this transition is a situation where you have to look at the problem you have with the fossil fuel while you are transiting. If you don't deal with those problems and you want to transit, then at the end of the day, you'll be wearing a clean clothes on a dirty undies. And so we must also wash our undies as we are expecting to wear new clothes. Why did I say so? The state has no role in most of these activities we're talking about. And that's a fundamental issue. The PIB did not deal with that. There's this other greater issue in the Constitution that talk about the exclusive legislative list of government that completely exclude the states. And so, the states only look like a passerby and watch what is playing out. At the end of the day, we are at the receiving end of all the trouble in the industry. Can you agree with me that one of the major trouble we have, which has to be dealt with, is the excessive bureaucratic bottlenecks that has affected business. For some time now, you expect the state to partner with people to build modular refineries. Do you understand that part of the requisite or what is required is that they will do 2 times EIA. They do one in the wet season, do another in the dry season. Meanwhile, there are EIAs already exist in most of these areas. So why can't it be adopted? How do we bridge this bureaucracy to enable us to move forward? Because you do EIA now, you wait for another 1 year for the next season to come to do the next one. By the time you overcome that one, you begin to face the other auxiliary problems. So all these problems need to be dealt with in this transition. Because this transition will not make any meaning if we don't put food on the table of Nigerians. If Nigerians cannot see food to buy, then we are wasting our time in this transition. So what are we doing to be able to make ease the misery index of people in our state? Because a situation where you make cost of production very high, it means that output will also be scarce. When output is scarce, employment is a problem, then there will be inflation, there will be unemployment. When you combine that twin brothers, then you have the misery index of that state becoming very high. So let's deal with the realities. As a state, we're confronted with oil theft. We're confronted with a lot of problems. You agree with me, His Excellency the Governor of Rivers State, I've been on the streets, in the bush, chasing these people who are doing this oil theft. As a ministry, we have also taken time to see what we can do to take the market from them. We have seen that confrontation is not solving the problem. You confront them today, you destroy one today, they build the next one the other day. So what we have done as a ministry is to see how we can take the market from them by developing 2 apps. These 2 apps is helping, and if we have the opportunity, we'll be able to explain on it so that it becomes a national program. And this will help us in this transition. Also, the issue of gas utilization plan. When you give license to these companies to go and build factories and build the industries in our states, do you insist that gas utilization plan will be there? Or that you allow them to flare gas and take the tenants and then we suffer the environmental aspect of it? So as a state, it is important that we reduce this relativism and allow these companies to strengthen investment. It is this investment that will bring return on investment to our states. When we get this return on investment, we will be able to fare better and to be able to provide more for our people, solve the problems that are confronting us. The mirage of insecurity in all and most states are caused by this lack of jobs that this revitalization can create for us. So how do we smoothen it to get a better deal so that the state can feel better? And that is to say that we need stronger synergy between the federal and the states so that we can close the gap in this transition. If we don't close that kind of gap in this transition, and then we are there at the other pole and the other one is at the other pole, then every day we'll be fighting either on TV or in the National Assembly. So these are the realities. We must deal with the realities to put food on the table of Nigeria. If not, this transition will make no sense. There will be insecurity, there will be crisis, there will be trouble. Then where are we going from here? We can move from fossil fuel to the other cleaner one, then we look for the other cleaner one and the other cleaner one in the faces of the hunger and the trouble, the insecurity that is stabbing us as a nation. What do you give me?
This is the reason why you should have been at this conference 4 years ago, 3 years ago, last year and this year. Oh, really? Oh, interesting. So, because we had these conversations from maybe 2 years ago, by now we should have been harmonizing some and cleaning up some areas. But I mean, you heard loud and clear. Quick shots from any of you, representative from the Bayelsa State government, the governor from Ondo State, then to His Excellency, the Governor of Kebbi. I would like for Governor Prime, the Governor from Chairman to round off when you quick seconds. I mean, if you had the opportunity to really put your boots on ground, see the reason why you should have been at this conference 4 years ago, 3 years ago, last year and this year. Oh, really? Oh, interesting. So, because we had these conversations from maybe 2 years ago, by now we should have been harmonizing some and cleaning up some areas. But I mean, you heard loud and clear. Quick shots from any of you, representative from the Bayelsa State government, the Governor from Ondo State, then to His Excellency, the Governor of Kebbi. I would like for Governor Prime, the Governor from Chairman to round off when you quick seconds. I mean, if you had the opportunity to really put your boots on ground and do the job and do the dirty job, excluding all of these factors, what quick wins will those be quickly for you?
Between 3 to 4.5 megawatt stations that are going to be powered by gas in various locations, the urban centers. And you saw the vote in the National Assembly some days ago when the question was asked if states could provide power in the areas covered by the national grid. That is a new day, because if you check the power movement in Nigeria, you did mention, power comes from Osogbo, for instance. You need a substation to distribute to Ondo and Ekiti State. We currently have about 55 megawatts of power coming from Osogbo, shared 20 and 35 megawatts between two states. So we had a line, 330 kV line, which has been in the works for the past 10 years. If that is completed, the quantum of power that will come to Ondo State, and we share with Ekiti, will run to over 200. And in the southern part of the state, where we've had power challenge for some while, we also have NEDC building a substation, so that the power hub, the Omotosho Power Hub, where you have many megawatts of power line fallow, you could bring power from that and support that corridor. So Ondo is doing things in the area of mini grids, micro grids, IPPs, and of course, we are doing our best to enhance the delivery of the national grid.
What's the power? What's the mix in terms of how you intend to power these grids?
To power the street?
The grids.
The grids.
Yes.
Solar. All the mini grids are powered by solar. And we have had them first in the areas, suburbs, rural areas, where we can do 80 kilowatts, 120 kilowatts, and they're going to be fine. With time, we're going to be focusing on areas where you can have the same quantum of power to power, say, market and some other locations.
All right, thank you very much. Let's come to Bayelsa State. Perhaps one of the states that get huge revenue because of what you produce. Right? Right. So, when it happens, of course, we've seen all of the pictures that whenever international magazines, maybe for reasons of patriotism, we don't see that a lot in our pages of newspapers and magazines, but international magazines and the reality of the exploration companies and all of that, when you see some of those pictures as in to the effect of exposure to maybe glass flare and all of that, it tells you that you're one state that needs to rethink processes. How much of these are within your purview? And if they are not, or if they are, do you have inhibitions? For instance, you can take up, earlier there's a panel here that we heard and listened to, it had to do with free trade zone. Are you thinking clusters? Are you thinking some of those kind of enablements, environments that allow for an aggregate, so that you're looking away from some of the effects of what is already happening in terms of exploration as an alternative, and in response to the climate change question, which is here with us as we transit and as we energize the industry?
I want to appreciate His Excellencies, the Excellencies that are here, and also His Excellency, the Minister for State. If you talk about gas flaring, we have over 20 locations. And recently, just last week, we had a questionnaire from some investors, that are trying to convert, this gas flaring into power, that we should provide, these things. But unfortunately, or fortunately, the PIA, if you look at it, there is no mention of state government, in that PIA, but we are being proactive, whether it is there or not, because we know that the regulations will come. And even when we made our proposals, our memorandum, it wasn't taken. But for the question you asked, I know that very soon, even within this month, we are receiving investors that will come to look into that gas flaring aspect. And somebody also mentioned, the Bahrain CPF, the central processing, facility, that is there in Bayelsa. Because when we talk about, energy transition, we should also look at the facilities, that are there. If you go around that CPF, it's not something that somebody else will come and see. And since this is a business that is being controlled by the federal government and operated by the private organizations, we want to see a situation where within the environment of that CPF, because if you go inside, it's a lovely thing to look at. So within the environment, we want to see a situation where there could be some one or two structures, to encourage tourism aspect. Well, we don't need to even look at just energy transition, And the other thing again we look at, because of the terrain that we occupy, okay, there are security issues, in the terrain. And, okay, yeah, thank you. And it is something that is sensitive. One, we're talking about cost. We also have, the brass island there. And if there is a road that is connecting to that brass island, it will reduce the security issues and even cutting down, the cost, to cut down costs. And in the long run, increase revenue, of the Federation. So to summarize, I want to say that gas flaring in the state, after some period, is something that we can convert to power. That is what we are looking at.
I know there's a process already for that. Thank you very much. Let's come to the representative of the River State Governor, Mr. Peter. Yeah, let's have your thoughts. At least from all that has been said, it seems like there is a peculiar condition or peculiar need of the other state governors. Is that contrast between what you want to achieve, unlock the potentials, and the inhibitions that you may be facing, maybe by way of legislation, and that has not allowed perhaps investments to come in. You want to move, you can move when you want to move.
Well, thank you. Let me thank the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum and all the organizers of this program. And let me also extend my appreciation to the brothers of my governors who are here present. Well, the situation where we are in. Let me start with the issue that Honorable Minister said that they don't need umbrella here. And to tell the Honorable Minister that we need some shade We need some coverage in this transition. And that kind of coverage and shade we need in this transition, you know what that can provide that. Thank you. However, you know that what we are talking about in this transition is a situation where you have to look at the problem you have with the fossil fuel while you are transiting. If you don't deal with those problems and you want to transit, then at the end of the day, you'll be wearing the clean clothes on a dirty undies. And so we must also wash our undies as we are expecting to wear new clothes. Why did I say so? The state has no role in most of these activities we are talking about. And that's a fundamental issue. The PIB did not deal with that. There's this other greater issue in the Constitution that talk about the exclusive legislative list of government that completely exclude the states. And so the states only look like a passerby and watch what is playing out. At the end of the day, we are at the receiving end of all the trouble in the industry. And you will agree with me that one of the major trouble we have, which has to be dealt with, is what the excessive bureaucratic bottlenecks that has affected business. For some time now, you expect the state to partner with people to build modular refineries. Do you understand that part of the requisite or what is required is that they will do 2 times EIA. They do one in the wet season, do another in the dry season. Meanwhile, there are EIAs already exist in most of these areas. So why can't it be adopted? How do we bridge this bureaucracy to enable us move forward? Because you do EIA now, you wait for another 1 year for the next season to come to do the next one. By the time you overcome that one, you begin to face the other auxiliary problems. So all these problems need to be dealt with in this transition. Because this transition will not make any meaning if we don't put food on the table of Nigerians. If Nigerians cannot see food to buy, then we are wasting our time in this transition. So what are we doing to be able to make ease the misery index of people in our state? Because a situation where you make cost of production very high, it means that output would also be scarce. When output is scarce, employment is a problem, then there will be inflation, there will be unemployment. When you combine that twin brothers, then you have the misery index of that state becoming very high. So let's deal with the realities. As a state, we are confronted with oil theft. We are confronted with a lot of problems. You agree with me, His Excellency, the Governor of Rivers State, have been on the streets, in the bush, chasing these people who are doing this oil theft. As a ministry, we have also taken time to see what we can do to take the market from them. Because we have seen that confrontation is not solving the problem. You confront them today, you destroy one today, they build the next one the other day. So what we have done as a ministry is to see how we can take the market from them by developing 2 apps. These 2 apps is helping, and if we have the opportunity, we'll be able to explain on it so that it becomes a national program. And this will help us in this transition. Also, the issue of gas utilization plan. When you give license to these companies to go and build factories and build their industries in our states, do you insist that gas utilization plan must be there? Or that you allow them to flare gas and take the penalty, and then we suffer the environmental aspect of it? So as a state, it is important that we reduce this relativism and allow these companies to strengthen investment. It is this investment that will bring return on investment to our states. When we get this return on investment, we will be able to fare better and to be able to provide more for our people, solve the problems that are confronting us. The mirage of insecurity in all and most states are caused by this lack of jobs that this revitalization can create for us. So how do we smoothen it to get a better deal so that the state can feel better? And that is to say that we need stronger synergy between the federal and the states so that we can close the gap in this transition. If we don't close that kind of gap in this transition, and then we are there at the other pole and the other one is at the other pole, then every day we'll be fighting either on TV or in the National Assembly. So these are the realities. We must deal with the realities to put food on the table of Nigeria. If not, this transition will make no sense. There will be insecurity, there will be crisis, there will be trouble. Then where are we going from here? We can move from fossil fuel to the other cleaner one, then we look for the other cleaner one and the other cleaner one in the faces of the hunger and the trouble, the insecurity that is starving us as a nation. So we must deal with these things.
This is the reason why you should have been at this conference 4 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe last year, and
I've always been here.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, interesting. So, because if we had had these conversations from maybe 2 years ago, by now we should have been harmonizing some and cleaning up some areas. But I mean, you're heard loud and clear. Quick shots from any of you, representative of the bio. I would like for Governor Fayemi, the Governor Forum Chairman, to round off when you quick seconds. I mean, if you had the opportunity to really put your boots on ground and do the job and do the dirty job, excluding all of these factors, what quick wins will those be quickly for you? Anybody from that end?
Yes, I just want to add, that when there are critical, areas that were mentioned, which is okay, but we need to look at security aspect in the industry, because without security, there is nothing anybody can do. Because we from Bayelsa, we know what we are facing. And the government is, the state government, we have a policy, water with security. But this is very capital intensive. That is not just the state alone that can do. So the federal government needs to come in.
All right. Yes, sorry, because of our time. Let's quickly have...
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Apologies.
First of all, we must learn to eat our frog early. Nigeria needs to remove subsidy on PMS now. As Governor Kayode Fayemi said, that NNPC brought nothing to the table last month. What that means is we are running a country that is basically bankrupt. So we either act now or we are compelled to act, perhaps when it is too late. Number two, we must sweat all of our equipment right now. We must get all the oil producible from our reservoirs to surface now. The $100 oil is not going to go on forever. If we latch on to the situation we have right now, and by the time the world is able to break the back of COVID-19 and energy is required to power the economies, we might also sustain that price for a better part of the year, 2022. If we can get our production above 2 million barrels a day, that would be great for the future. And for PIA, one area which has a big
quick shots.
Just last one. PIA has not delineated correctly or clearly what the host community is. If we don't work on that, we may begin to create a Mexico kind of crisis, and warlords will take advantage of the ordinary people that the PIA intended when those provisions were made. Thank you.
Well, the reality is that there must be a proper mix of this transition so that we'll be able to benefit. We must get into aggressive investment. Like in Rivers State, we have a gas master plan. As we speak, we have 17-kilometer gas pipeline with millions cubic feet of gas. If we get more investment in that, that will bring more industrialization. And you know what that means. So this transition should be a transition with human face. Let's remove politics. Let's remove bitterness. Let's deal with this thing as an industry issue. That's why I like the panel who has spoken long before, that private sector is key in this business, so that we don't allow the politics of the nation interfere with this reality we are facing. It is important that we deal with it so that Nigerians can be happy.
Governor Bugudi, yes.
Thank you. I said it earlier. I think to come back to what I said, I would like to see the Minister of Petroleum supporting NNPC in its effort to become truly an energy company and aim to have 20% of their production from biofuel. That will make many states oil producers and contribute to agricultural prosperity of the country.
Your Excellency, Governor JFK.
Oh, you want me to?
Yes, a quick round of.
Oh, okay. Well, the experts around here tell us that Nigeria is actually more of a gas country than an oil country. And I recall that at COP26 in Glasgow earlier in the year, or late last year, Mr. President gave a pledge of net zero effect by 2060. Is it 2060? If we're going to achieve net zero in 2060, and we are a gas nation rather than an oil nation, then we need to start working towards that now. That transition needs to start immediately. We're talking about conversion, reducing our consumption of PMS, but instead of reducing it, what we're hearing is that we're actually consuming more PMS. Whether that's true or not, that's something that I don't want to go into in this hall, but that's what you tell us. I think the earlier we embark on really truly making Nigeria feel the impact of being a gas-producing nation rather than an oil-producing nation, the better it is for us that this energy transition will move faster than we're currently doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Just as we're rounding off, the Group Managing Director, CEO, and NPC walked in, and my thoughts quickly ran back to what he said earlier in the, what he said earlier in previous sessions about what will happen, how NNPC will transform to become a truly world-class independent company, and that they pointed us to this, and sometime in July. So the 20% you're talking about in terms of ethanol may just be a reality sooner than you think.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please give them a resounding applause. Listen, the two governors who are here in person have proven to us that they are committed in carrying their people along in this energy transition. So they decided to come here for themselves and contribute by themselves and take a stand for them and their people. And I think they deserve a resounding applause. Thank you, Your Excellencies. The three states that I presented here, thank you so very much. My palm sakes, please, can we present to them? Your Excellencies will have a token of appreciation to say thank you for coming to N.I.E.S to speak and share your thoughts. Thank you very much.